Shalom, shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all praise, honor, and the glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, B'Kakwadash. I want to give double honors to the apostles, elders, and bishops, a great millstone that rule well, and peace and blessings be multiplied on all you brethren, teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. Shalom to the hopeful elect, 144,000, and the rest of the elect out there. Shalom. I'm the brother Dama Al-Gabar, here with another lesson, Lord willing to edify through the spirit and power of Yahweh wa Yahweh Shai. All right, and I got this article from Zero Hedge titled, Israel and the West Set the Stage for Next Round of Warfare on Iran. All right, and as you know, this situation with Iran and Israel is going to set the stage ultimately for biblical prophecy to come to pass, which I have right here in Jeremiah, the 49th chapter. All right, and this is something that we continuously keep our eyes on because we know ultimately this is going to lead to major biblical events. Ultimately, the least of the flock, which is those Israelis, the 1948ers, the small hats over there in Israel, they're going to draw out eventually America into the war with Iran, which is going to bring in Ezekiel, the 38th chapter, which is dealing with, Gog and Magog, which is Russia, getting involved in this war. All right. And, these things, these are things that, we're constantly watching because we know the heaviness they play in prophecy. And, we know for a long time it's going to be rumors. We're going to see it escalate. We're going to see it de-escalate. We're going to see it escalate and de-escalate. But we know eventually at some point it's going to blow. It's going to pop. It's going to get to the point to where, it's going to lead all these other major nations into this third world war. And just earlier I was reading an article now where you got the president of China, Xi, you got Kim Jong-un of North Korea, Russia, President Vladimir Putin, I think the president of India, and a couple other nations are meeting right now in China as they're conducting their military drills. You see, and they're all there. China's unveiling new, never before seen, the most powerful lasers on the planet. And we know that these nations are ultimately gathering together and, linking up so that they could bring, so that they could eventually, when this third world war is brought to pass, they're going to link up against the West, against America, Israel, and the EU, which is going to lead to this third woe, which is this third world war, which will be the war to end all wars, all right? And it's all according to biblical prophecy, okay? So let me read this in Jeremiah, the 49th chapter, and the 20th verse. It says, Therefore hear the counsel of Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, that he have taken against Edom, all right? And Edom is the so-called white man, okay? All right, and right now, America and those small hats, they're all Edomites at the end of the day, all right? And the Lord has a counsel against the so-called white man, which is ultimately, him being destroyed, him eventually getting involved in this third world war, which is going to ultimately lead to his demise. It says, and his purpose is that he have purpose against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. And who was the least of the flock? Those small hats, those 1948ers, the so-called Ish people. Netanyahu and, what they're doing over there with all of that. That's the least of the flock that's going to eventually draw out, the West, America, into that provocation with Iran, which is going to eventually lead to Russia having to stand up and to be a guard. Russia and its allies, the Iranians, the Persians, the Libyans, and we believe it's going to be China, North Korea, a lot of those BRICS countries, Brazil, India, Russia, China, South Africa, and many of the other allies that these BRICS countries have been, coming together with to fight against the West, and it's all going to take place eventually, at the time appointed. But we can see prophetically how these things are shaping out, And it says, surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them, because ultimately, that situation with Iran and America getting involved is going to eventually lead to the devastation and the destruction of Babylon the Great, America, which is something prophetically we are hastening, those times to come, because we know it's going to ultimately lead to the return of our Lord and Savior, Yahweh Shai, him coming back to judge these nations as they're fighting in the midst of this third world war to establish his dominion and his authority, as King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and also to gather up his elect of the 12 tribes of Israel from the four corners of the earth. Drop these nuclear missiles upon Babylon, upon, the land of Israel and various other places around the earth, and, come back down and establish the kingdom of Israel. So these things are very vital for prophecy. So we're constantly watching for these things and keeping a good eye on it, because we ultimately know it's going to lead to significant prophecy. It says, the earth is moved at the noise of their fall, at the cry of the noise thereof was heard in the Red Sea. Because ultimately, let me read this in NLT, verse 21. It says, the earth will shake with the noise of Edom's fall, right? Because like I said, everybody is waiting for, this is why you see so much talk about, the declining Western Empire, how America is on its last leg. This place is basically ruined. It's circling the drain. Everybody, all the American people here are complaining and crying about the cost of living. People were talking about how the American dream is dead. A lot of American tourism is not as booming as it used to be. And basically, America is finding itself being isolated from the rest of the world financially, especially financially, as being looked at as that golden city, it's looked up as that, the city paved with gold. A lot of people had aspirations and dreams of figuring out, if you can just get to America, you can live the American dream. You can leave your third world country as long as you get to America and you work hard. You can be successful. You could become wealthy. You could become middle class. You could, it's the land of opportunity. And now that's not the case anymore, man. Now a lot of people, even the American people themselves, the new American dream now is people leaving America and trying to get citizenship in other places around the country. All right. Google that on YouTube. It's a huge movement and a huge amount of people here in America seeking citizenship outside of Babylon, because they know this place is ultimately through. All right. And it's going to be ultimately through when the Lord allows, the nuclear missiles to ultimately to obliterate this place. It says the earth will shake with the noise of Edom's fall. Right. Read Revelation, the 18th chapter. Babylon the Great is fallen, is fallen. This is what this is talking about. It says, and his cry of despair will be heard all the way to the Red Sea. You see? It says, look, the enemy swoops down like an eagle. Oh, it's spiritual, right? I was just reading an article with these new weapons that China possesses. They're hypersonic missiles. They got this new laser beam, but one of those weapons is called, what is it called? The Eagle Attack or something like that. But it's in Chinese, but it basically translates into basically eagle missiles, the destroyer of the eagle or something of that nature. You see? And it says, look, the enemy swoops down like an eagle, spreading his wings over Basra. And Basra is spiritually America, okay? It says, even the mightiest warriors will be in anguish like a woman in labor, you see? Hey, and those missiles are going to do just that job. But let me get back here, right? And just show you how ultimately, what Israel and what America is doing is ultimately doing the counsel and the will of Yahweh Shem Shai. Now, America and Iran and Israel thinks they're doing this to give Israel complete total dominance over, the West Bank and Gaza and, to secure the Holy Land. And they're going to do all this. And, and America's going to come and aid it in its endeavors to gain control of that land. But ultimately, what they're doing is fulfilling the will of the Most High, which is ultimately allowing these devils to be, to do what they're doing, ultimately to be destroyed for it. It's going to lead to their utter demise. But they don't understand that, because of the pride of Esau. He thinks he's in control and he's running things. But really, he's dancing to the tune of the prophecy and the will of Yahweh Shem Shai at the end of the day, as we all are. It says, peace-loving people throughout the world breathe a sigh of relief when the Israeli-American war on Iran ended in June after 12 days, with President Trump racing to triumphantly declare U.S. strikes had obliterated Iran's nuclear program. While his rhetoric suggests that he wanted Israel and the world to view the U.S. bombing as a lasting resolution of accusations that Iran was pursuing nuclear weapons, Israel and his Western collaborators are already setting the stage for new aggression against Iran. And you see, because it's going to fulfill prophecy. All right, this is the counsel and the will of Yahweh Shem Shai. Now, of course, Israel and the West thinks they're doing this to fulfill their endeavors, that they're doing this, to gain whatever, stronghold and foothold that they, are planning, but really it's all the plan of the Most High, man. It's beautiful at the end of the day. Hey, the Most High is the master chess player, and these Israel and the West and Iran and these other nations and these armies, they're all just pieces being moved by the Most High, so that He can ultimately checkmate all of them. It says Israeli strikes could be just days or weeks away, with Netanyahu hoping that this time the United States will be drawn into yet another protracted, bloody regime change campaign to further the Israel agenda. You see? And this is why we say the least of the flock is going to draw them out. Because like I said, we can't precisely tell you, which one of these situations is going to cause this prophecy to be fully fulfilled, but we know it's going to be in this like manner. Israel is going to take it to a stage to where America is going to have no choice but to get involved. And ultimately, they're really pushing Iran into a corner to where, they're going to have to attack so that these devils can be justified and totally wiping them off the map. And this is something that these devils been doing for years and years, man. They back you into a corner, play victim. They've been telling the same lie for fucking 50 years now that Iran's going to create, they're days away from having nuclear weapons. And Netanyahu been saying this shit ever since he's been, in power over there. This has been the same shit, saying the same thing over and over and over. Oh, Israel's trying to protect themselves from Iran. They're so hated. But at the same time, can play the victim. But the whole time you've been nothing but the villain. You see, but this is how this devil operates. He'll back you into a corner, and then when you finally retaliate and strike back, oh, they're the victim, and now you need to be stopped, and now they're justified in bringing in the West and totally obliterating the Iranian regime and bringing peace and stability, all that bullshit, But at the end of the day, hey, man, it's all to fulfill prophecy, okay? It says on Thursday, matter of fact, I got a precept dealing with these devils, man. All right, what's it? This one here. This is Proverbs chapter 26, verse 23 in the NLT. It says, smooth words may hide a wicked heart, just as a pretty glaze covers a clay pot. And that's what these devils do, especially those small hats, They always got the smooth words. Oh, we're trying, Israel's always been a victim. We got to protect ourselves from these, violent regimes. We're trying to preserve our way of life. They always got these excuses of how they're always the victim. They're always under attack. But the whole time they've been there, they've been on nothing but the offensive. The things that they do get swept under the rug. But the moment they get cracked or they get retaliated against, then they're the victim. Now we need help. We need aid. They need to come to our defense. Blah, 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 blah. All bullshit, man. But that's how the devil operates. It says people may cover their hatred with pleasant words, but they're deceiving you. See? That whole playing the victim, that's nothing but deception, man, that these devils use to justify their retaliation and their bullshit, It says they pretend to be kind, but don't believe them. Their hearts are full of many evils. You see? It says while their hatred may be concealed by trickery. Oh, yeah, even Netanyahu tried to use scripture to justify tried to call the Palestinians Amalek and justify their ethnic cleansing of those Palestinians over there, man. But at the same time, when we prophesy as us being the Israelites and say that what we're going to do to Amalek and to these nations, through the power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, oh, we're so violent, we're so hatred, oh, we just want to hurt people, we're so violent, etc., etc. But when it comes to these devils, they get the pass, right? Fucking hypocrites, man. It says, while their hatred may be concealed by trickery, their wrongdoings will be exposed in public, you see? And that's what we see. Especially now, hey, those small hats are losing a whole lot of support because people are finally waking up to the bullshit. People are seeing through the charade. They're seeing through them always playing victim. They see through, just how truly wicked and vile those people really, truly are in these last days of the truth coming out. And so now they're losing massive amounts of support from people that used to usually support them and that would just blindly go along with the narrative that, they're God's chosen people and the Bible tells you have to defend Israel and all this other bullshit. But now people are truly seeing just how vile and how wicked those people are, man. They're seeing the true nature of those small hats of who they truly are, and that they're nothing. Everything about them is a fucking charade, man. It's all veneers, man. It's BS. It says, if you set a trap for others, you will get caught up in it yourself. And this is the point I'm trying to make. This trap that those small hats And what America is setting for these Iranians are going to eventually turn back and bite them in the ass. It's going to lead to their utter destruction. It's going to lead to the fall of Esau, Edom, the American military, and the West as we know it through this Third World War. And ultimately through Yahweh Shah coming back, with the thousands of angels, with the chariots, with the fire, with the blasting, and ultimately with the nuclear missiles putting the cherry on top. It says, if you set a trap for others, you will get caught in it yourselves. If you roll a boulder down on others, it will crush you instead. A lying tongue hates its victims, and flattering words cause ruin. You see? And that's what this whole agenda of what these devils is all about. And let me show you, right? It says, on Thursday, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom notified the UN Security Council that they were starting the process to reimpose UN sanctions on Iran via snapback provisions of the 2015 nuclear deal. Under that agreement, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Iran, and remember, France, Germany, and the United Kingdom are all part of the EU. They're all part of this, the ancient Roman Empire being revised. You see? So they're all in agreement. You see? And this is why, like I said, China, North Korea, Russia, India, BRICS, all these other nations are gathering themselves together because they're going to eventually fight against this, this dragon. All right. It says the Joint Comprehensive Plan, Iran agreed to many additional safeguards to ensure its nuclear program remains peaceful. For example, Iran eliminated its inventory of medium enriched uranium, cut its low enriched uranium by 98%, capped future enrichment at 3.67%, and rendered its heavy water reactor inoperable by filling it with concrete. In exchange, Iran was granted sanctioned relief. So here it is. Iran played ball. They went according to everything that these devils was trying to tell them to do, so that Israel wouldn't feel so threat, showing them that they weren't, trying to get enrich their uranium to make a nuclear bomb. So they played ball. They played by all the rules. But what did these devils do at the end of the day? They still tried to stick it to them, man. They still reneged. They still went back on it. You see what you're going to say? It says, despite Iran's compliance with the JCPOA, President Trump spontaneously withdrew the United States from the deal in 2018 and reimposed U.S. sanctions that its administration called the toughest sanctions ever imposed. So here it is. They played ball. They were in compliance, and you turn around and put even more stricter sanctions on them. So it's like you can't win with these devils, man. So it got to the point to where Iran was like, well, fuck it. We tried to play ball. We tried to agree to everything that you do. And you still trying to set us up for the yoke dope. You still going to turn around and play us and try to make it seem as if we're the aggressors when we're not. It says, on Iran, it says, victimized by a new round of Israel encouraged U.S. economic warfare and lacking any other leverage to nudge the United States back into the deal, Iran began enriching uranium well above the levels allowed for the JCPOA. It says, parroting Israel, Trump insisted that Iran must cease all nuclear enrichment, something Tehran has categorically ruled out for years, asserting that it's Iran's right, both as a sovereign state and, unlike nuclear-armed Israel, as a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Internal politics play a significant role in the impasse, with important Iranian segments opposed to bending to Western demands on a point of national pride for the scientifically advanced country. So you see how these devils operate, right? Here it is. They complied, but then Trump came back around for the interests of Israel and put even harder reimposed sanctions. The toughest sanctions ever imposed. You see, it says what? By a new round of Israel encouraged U.S. So Israel was pushing this. Israel is the puppet master behind America and Trump. So they allowed them to impose even further sanctions on Iran. And like I said, they're basically putting them in a situation to where, they're putting them in a situation to where, even though, they tried to play ball, but since, you can never, please these devils. Hey, so they might as well just enrich uranium any goddamn way because you played by the rules. You tried to do the right thing only to be slapped with even more harder sanctions, So you basically might as well, we might as well just do it any goddamn way because these devils are going to play. They're going to fuck around and play games any goddamn way. It says, in something akin to Vito Corleone's offer that can't be refused, U.S.-Israeli insistence on zero enrichment is quite deliberately a demand that won't be accepted, you see? So they're giving them they're pretty much, they're putting them against the wall. Pretty much, you know, ultimately they're going to leave them in a situation to where these devils are going to be justified in going to war with them, you know, via this whole uranium enrichment shit, man. It's all a trap and a snares, man. But then on the same hand, America act like, well, we tried to be peaceful with Iran. We tried to give them some options on the table, but those options are absolutely ridiculous, man. You know, like I said, he gave them an offer that they can't refuse, man. And they know that Iran needs, you know, uranium enrichment for scientific shit, for power, for infrastructure, for other things that their country needs. But these devils are saying, look, you can't enrich uranium at all. 0%. So obviously they know they need it for other things. So, you know, that's going to be the excuse they're going to use to be able to eventually go to war with Iran. And it's good, because that's exactly what Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai wants, man. So to show you that these devils are diabolical, man. This is Psalms 55 and 20. It says, he has put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. You see? It says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords. And that's what this devil continuously and always does, man. You see? And it's going to eventually lead to these devils being justified and eventually attacking Iran in a way to where, hey, it's going to draw out the West. It's going to draw out Russia. It's going to lead to this third world war, you know? What else is in here? Yeah, it says, to the benefit of the warmongers, this demand helps ensure perpetual tension and reoccurring U.S.-Israeli military brinksmanship, all pursuant to Israel's long-standing goal of maneuvering the United States into an all-out war on Iran. Remember, this is the will of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, but these devils think is their plan, is their goals. You see, it says, all pursuant to Israel's longstanding goal of maneuvering the United States into an all-out war in Iran, or at least a major drive to topple the regime via proxies, which when you get to that point, that's when Russia is going to have to be that guard. China, BRICS nations, the other allies to Russia and China are going to have to eventually step in to intervene, which is going to lead to this third world war and ultimately Edom being destroyed. It says, or at least a major drive to blah, blah, blah. It says that's consistent with Israel's strategy, which centers on continuously shattering territories and countries throughout the region so none can serve as a potential rival. It's a strategy that's taken an unfathomable toll that falls heaviest on people of the region, but also profoundly harms the United States. And it's going to ultimately harm the United States, because it's going to lead to the fall of America, the fall of Babylon the Great, this third world war, which all these devils are going to eventually be losers. But hey, it's all coincided. It's all going to the tune of prophecy, man. Yep. Let me see. There's another part of here I wanted to read. Where is it? So you can see, man, hey, these devils, man, you know, they think they're in control, but they're not. Everything that they're doing is just leading prophecy to be fulfilled. All right. It says, with both Israel and the United States threatening renewed warfare if Iran makes good on its promise to continue enriching uranium, Tehran will be justifiably reluctant to disclose the fate of its 60% enriched uranium or to give full access to its nuclear facilities, including those hit by Israel and the United States in June. After all, full transparency would certainly be exploited by military planners in Washington and Tel Aviv. It's a no-win situation for Iran. A withdrawal from the NPT will be portrayed by Israel and its Western allies as proof that Iran is building a nuclear bomb. The same narrative will be promoted if Iran continues to allow inspectors but fails to grant every request for access to sites around the country. You see? So they basically got Iran in a trick bag. It's either you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. It's a lose-lose situation for them, which ultimately is going to lead to prophecy being fulfilled, man. You see, it says it easily to purposely trigger refusals, for example, by asking for access to sites that aren't sincerely suspected of harboring nuclear assets, but are nonetheless sensitive from Iranian national security standpoint. Either way, Israel and its collaborators in Western governments can create a pretext for military intervention. Ironically, Israel may be pushing Iran into a corner that prompts Ayatollah Khomeini to withdraw his religious edict forbidding the development of nuclear weapons, turning a long false accusation into reality. Short of an all-out war or regime change campaign, Israel at the least wants to impose a new violent reality on Iran, blah, blah, blah. See? So that's ultimately the point of the article, you see? The Most High is playing chess with these devils, and he's going to eventually make it to where this situation is going to escalate to fulfill prophecy, man. All right, and he's going to let these Israelis put those Iranians into a situation so that all roads are going to lead to prophecy being fulfilled, man. All right, this is Isaiah 46:8 in the NLT. It says, "Don't forget this. Keeping in mind, remember this, you guilty ones. Remember the things I have done in the past. For I alone am the Most High. I am Yahweh, and there is none like me. Only I can tell you the future before it even happens. Everything I plan will come to pass, for I do whatever I wish." You see that? See? And that's what these these devils fail to realize, and they fail to understand. Even a lot of these people of the world, they don't understand that Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah is in control of everything that happens, man. There's nothing that's happening on this planet that's not under the authority or control of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah. All right, and it's all going to lead to these nations being judged, like it says here, Joel 3:1. Oh no, what was that one? Yep, this is Joel chapter 3, verse 2. It says, "I will also gather all nations and bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat." And that word Jehoshaphat in the Hebrew is Yahweh Shaphat, which means the Most High's judgment, "and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land." And who's in the land right now stinking it up? Those small hats, those 1948ers, man. You see, and they're going to pay for doing that shit. That's why, that land is going to be eventually melted and destroyed, right? Until we go back there, and it's going to be rebuilt, all right, through the labor and slave labor of these heathen nations, all right? This is Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 8, and I'll close it here. "Therefore wait ye upon me, saith Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, until the day that I rise up to the prey," right? And that's Valley of Jehoshaphat is going to be the time where that's going to happen. "For my determination is to gather the nations, that I may assemble the kingdoms, to pour upon them mine indignation, even all my fierce anger, for all the earth shall be devoured with the fire of my jealousy." You see, and this is what a huge part of this escalation and these, the least of the flock drawing America out into this war with Iran, because it's going to ultimately lead to this third world war, where all these nations and their armies will be gathered in that valley of Jehoshaphat over there in Asia, or the so-called Middle East. And there they're going to be judged by Yahweh Shai and broken and destroyed, man. So, with that, I'm going to close it there. So, hey, man, this is huge for prophecy's sake. And we know it's going to eventually fulfill what the Lord has set it out to do. And we're just patiently waiting for it to come to pass, because we know what the end of it is going to lead to. So with that, Lord willing, you were edified. All praise, honor, glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. Until the next one, shalom.